And the article's called Prominent Freemason and Occultist Predicted 50 Years a One World Religion Led by a Christ to Come. So, I want to focus on the section of this article because it's a pretty long article. I want to just break it down into two sections, and I want to just have a conversation with you. The first section I want to talk about is where it says, Satan will rule in the Vatican. And let me read some of the article here where it says Satan will rule in the Vatican. I highlighted some of it here. It says, Foster goes so far as to predict, quote, it may eventuate that the most crystallized, materialistic, and dogmatic church in the Christian world will become the leader in a Christian religious revival. That should seem like a strange remark. What would make Foster think that the religion most opposed to the supremacy of one's own inner guidance would eventually become its biggest champion? Dr. Marshall has well documented in his book, Infiltration, that Freemasonry has indeed long planned to infiltrate the Catholic Church, even to the point of making one of its own the Pope, or rather an anti-Pope. This is also revealed in the permanent instruction of the Alta Vendita, which Dr. Marshall notes, which was produced in the English translation in the lecture by Reverend Monsignor George Dillon in 1884. Its author, who writes under the pseudonym Little Tiger, explains the long-term goal of Freemasons. It says, quote, our final end is that of Voltaire in the Revolution, the destruction forever of Catholicism and even of the Christian idea, which if left standing on the ruins of Rome would be the resuscitation of Christianity later. The Pope, whoever he will be, will never come to the secret societies. It is for the secret societies to come first to the church, with the aim of winning them both. The work which we have undertaken is not the work of a day, nor of a month, nor of a year. It may last many years, a century perhaps, but in our rank, the soldier dies, talking about the Freemason soldier, and the fight continues. Now then, in order to secure to us a pope according to our own heart, it is necessary to fashion for that pope a generation worthy of the kingdom of which we dream. Leave on one side old age and middle life, go to the youth, and if possible, even to the children. The ultimate goal of Freemasonry is the public reign of Satan in the world. St. Maximilian Kolbe testified in his Militia of the Immaculata magazine that in 1917, he had seen Freemasons march in St. Peter's Square flying a banner that read, quote, Satan will rule in the Vatican. It says here, in a Japanese November 1935 issue of the magazine, St. Kolbe wrote, quote, years later, the Freemasons in Rome began to demonstrate openly and belligerently against the church. They placed the black standard of the Giordano Brunisti under the windows of the Vatican. On this standard, the Archangel St. Michael was depicted lying under the feet of the triumphant Lucifer. Right then, I conceived the idea of organizing an active society to counteract Freemasonry and other slaves of Lucifer, close quote. St. Maximilian elaborated in 1939. He said this, a reckless hand felt no repugnance in writing, Satan will rule in the Vatican and the Pope will serve him. This mortal hatred for the Church of Jesus Christ and for his vicar was not just a prank on the part of deranged individuals, but a systematic action proceeding from the principle of Freemasonry, which is destroy all religion, whatever it may be, especially the Catholic religion, close quote. However outrageous this may seem to some Catholics, this scenario was also predicted by the Blessed Mother in a message to the children of La Salette in 1846. In 1879, The Secret of La Salette was published as written by one of the visionaries, Melanie Calvat, lamenting the corruption of so many priests and foretelling that, quote, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. Definitely want to probe Kyle about that. It says, it is important to note that such a pope of the Freemasons who serves the Antichrist agenda would be, in fact, an anti-pope. Father Paul Kramer explained in December 2023 that this anti-pope is still referred to in the still unpublished part of the Third Secret of Fatima, which he noted reveals that the great apostasy will be led from the Vatican by a heretic anti-pope who will carry out the Masonic agenda to abolish the dogma of the faith, the commandments of God, and the holy sacrifice of the Mass. Boy, oh boy, I wish I could read that and verify that. It says in 2024, 10 years into the pontificate of Francis, we can finally make sense of Foster Bailey's prediction that the church may become a leader in a Christian religious revival, as well as the Freemasons' prediction that a man elected pope would serve Satan. Over the past decade, Francis has given sign after sign that he is not really interested in upholding Catholic doctrine and practice, but rather in undermining it in favor of a less rigid, more inclusive faith. Here are the 4 points. Number 1, Pope Francis has done this: reinforcing religious indifferentism. For example, he said even atheists can be redeemed, and that he's not interested in converting evangelicals to Catholicism. He's also released a video promoting his prayer intentions featuring Muslim prayer beads, a Buddha statue, and a menorah, along with a baby Jesus, but no cross, saying, quote, "It's not right to convince someone of your faith." Second bullet, Pope Francis has promoted impiety and even blasphemy. For example, he has said that God was unjust with his son, and then joked that inside the Holy Trinity, they're all arguing behind closed doors. Number 3, Pope Francis has also appointed a slew of prelates to the Synod and Synodality who brazenly defy church teaching. And number 4, most egregious of all, attacking the very foundation of Catholic moral teaching by, for example, claiming that one can receive Holy Communion in mortal sin and that same-sex civil unions are permissible. These claims have been denounced as heretical. Pope Francis is also plainly aligned with the Masonic view of religion in a statement that the most important role of religions is that of promoting the culture of encounter, whatever that means, along with the promotion of true education in responsible behavior in caring for creation. No mention of God or Christ or salvation. And finally, if any doubt remains as to whether Pope Francis has the Masonic bent, consider what his election that his election was immediately praised by Grand Master Gustavo Raffi of the Grand Orient Masonic Lodge of Italy, who said, quote, "Fraternity and dialogue are his first concrete words. Perhaps nothing in the church will be as it was before," a close quote. Is he the long-awaited Pope according to the heart of the Freemasons? Well, according to this article, he checks all the boxes. You're an expert on Freemason, Kyle. What do you think of that rather long paragraph on Satan will rule in the Vatican? What's your comments on that?
I think that the accuracy is very, very high. The veracity coefficient is very, very high. I think you simply observe, and this is one of the things that we lose and we second guess, and this is a very Jesuitical false sophistication, the idea that, wait, things are not what they seem. Let's interpret this in a way. We as men know if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, swims like a duck, it's probably a duck. And I don't need to be proven. You don't need to prove to me it's a duck. You need to prove to me it's not. And that's where we are, is there is a false presumption. We've lost the presumption of goodwill, and rightly so. They've lost our trust. The medical community, government, all of the structures that men could rely on for centuries are failing, and the church is among them. The church hierarchy is among them. And so as a man responsible for souls, as a father, a husband, a father, a patriarch, we've got to do what we know is right. Regardless of what Rome does, we must remain Catholic. We know that there is a problem with the office of Pope. We know there's a problem with even our own prelates in this country. We know that they are not right. And to simply know that and then act accordingly. Do not be led into places and into areas and into fallacies that we know are false. You see what you see. Don't unsee it. Don't become blind. You see what you see.
In other words, this article is pretty well documented, like a police report, huh?
It is. It's very straightforward. It gives some instances. It gives some moments of evidence, objective truth, that are inconsistent with a holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. These are the 4 marks of the Church. And so when anything militates opposite those 4 marks and the deposit of faith, the sensum fidei, when things operate in opposition to them, they cannot be consistent with the faith. So the idea that a man can reform the church that Christ established, that has to be not only resisted, but it has to be called out and no, this is simply not right. How does it get called out? You and I, Joe Catholic, the man in the pew, says, basta, enough, no more. And we will bring back the norms that are necessary for Christ to be king. What are those? What are the things we can do? We can start by receiving Holy Communion only from a priest and kneeling. We can start by going to a knee in the church when we profess the creed and the Word became flesh. You go to the ground. If that does not drive you to the ground, if you stand at the mention of the incarnation, then there's already a psychological compatibility with the demon who does not want to yield to the truth that is Jesus Christ.